So in today's session, we are going to discuss about one of the programming language offered by the Salesforce as part of Force.com platform. That is Apex programming. That already we have discussed. Force.com is a cloud platform which has been given by Salesforce as part of platform as a service, which can be used in order to customize the existing Salesforce CRM applications and to leverage the functionalities to build your own custom applications, whatever you want, and to integrate your Salesforce applications with any external or third-party systems. We can perform all these operations with the help of the Force.com platform. So as part of Force.com platform, they have given two programming languages. First one is Apex, second one is Visual Force programming. Now today we'll see what exactly the Apex programming language, what we can do with the help of this Apex programming language, and what kind of principles or standards or guidelines or the rules that we need to follow upon writing the code by using this Apex programming language. We'll see practically. Along with that, we'll see how an Apex program will get executes internally by default. Okay, the Apex programming execution life cycle also we'll see. Now, when coming to the Apex programming, Apex is also one of the programming language. Okay, this is also one of the programming language, like as your C programming, C++, Java, C#.NET. Like that, Apex is also one of the programming language. But whatever the programming languages that we have in our IT industry as of now, like as Pascal, Basic, C, C++, Java, .NET, whatever the programming languages are available, these all are on-premise. These all are on-premise. That means what? First of all, we have to install that programming language software into a local system. Then only we can use that programming language to write some code to build some business logics. But when coming to the Apex programming is not an on-premise. It is purely a cloud-based programming language, which does not require any installation, which does not require any prerequisite softwares, which does not require any prerequisite hardware components. So Apex is purely a cloud-based programming language. Okay, Apex is purely a cloud-based programming language, which does not require any pre-installations. No need to install anything into a local system. Just by using the browser, we can able to access that Apex programming, and we can write some code, we can compile the code, we can execute the code, and we can see the result, everything inside the browser itself. So no need to have any special editors. Okay, no need to have any special editors inside your system. No need to maintain any prerequisite softwares. Directly we can access that Apex programming just by using browser and the internet access. That possibility is available as part of Apex programming. Now, in this case, when you go to that programming approaches, we have different programming approaches available in IT industry. Whatever the programming languages are available in our IT industry, the programming languages has been segregated into the 4 categories. Okay, whatever the programming languages are available in the IT industry, all these programming languages has been categorized into the 4 categories. The first one is procedure-oriented programming approach, procedure-oriented programming languages. Second one is the object-oriented programming languages. And the third one is the component-oriented programming languages. And the fourth one is service-oriented or message-oriented programming languages. Message-oriented programming languages. These are the 4 types of programming approaches are available in our IT industry. Okay, so we have the procedure-oriented programming languages, object-oriented programming languages, component-oriented programming languages, and the service-oriented programming languages. These are also called as message-oriented. So now simply we can say these are also called as SOA programming. Okay, service oriented architecture. So these are the 4 types of programming approaches are available in our IT industry. Now this Apex programming will be comes under which category now? Procedure oriented or object oriented, component oriented or service oriented? Object oriented. Now, Apex programming is purely a cloud-based object oriented programming language where each and every business logic will be available in the form of classes and objects. In object oriented programming language, every business logic which you are going to implement, that should be available in the form of classes and objects. So here also, Apex is comes under the object oriented programming language. It's not a procedure oriented, it's not component oriented, it's not service oriented. It is purely object oriented programming language. Okay, so that Apex is purely a cloud based object oriented programming language. Because when you go to that object oriented programming languages, we have so many programming languages, like as Smalltalk. Smalltalk is the world's first object oriented programming language. And then we have C++. And then we have Java, C#.NET, VB.NET, Visual C++.NET. Like that, we have so many programming languages are available. Along with that, Apex programming is also one of the object-oriented programming language. But Apex is the cloud-based programming and the remaining programming languages are purely on-premise. Okay, now make a note of this one. Apex is a cloud-based object-oriented programming language which doesn't require any pre-installations, which doesn't require any pre-installation. So no need to install anything into your local system. Nothing will be there in your local system. Even though if I am writing some code, that code is also not storing in your local system. Code will be storing inside the ForceCom platform itself. Okay, now. So in this case, Apex is a cloud-based object-oriented programming language which does not require any pre-installation. If it is an object-oriented programming, each and every business logic will be available in the form of classes and objects. So here also, as part of this Apex programming, whatever the business logic you are going to implement, that business logic we have to write in terms of classes and objects. Here also, the same principles. Because all the object-oriented programming languages has to support the same principles. Okay, now. So now in Apex programming, each business logic should be implemented in terms of classes and objects. Each business logic should be implemented in terms of classes and objects. In Apex programming, every business logic should be implemented in terms of classes and objects. Now, so now tell me, you can now tell me, Apex programming is comes under declarative customization or programmatic customization? Programmatic customization. Right. Now, make a note of this one. Apex is comes under the programmatic customization. Apex is comes under the programmatic customization. Now, by using this Apex programming, what we can implement? User interface or business logic? Business logic. Through Apex programming, we can implement our own custom business logics. Complex validation rules we can implement. Complex transactional flows we can implement. Complex business logics also we can implement, which are not possible through configuration. Whatever the business logic we have implemented through configuration, if that is not sufficient, if you want some more advanced, if you want to go beyond those limitations, then we can go with that Apex programming. Through Apex programming, we can implement the complex business logics also. These business logics are also called as controllers. Through Apex programming, we can able to build our own custom controller classes. Okay, now make a note here. By using Apex programming, we can implement the complex validation rules, complex business logics, and the complex transactional flows. Complex transactional flows. Now, by using Apex, we can implement our own custom controllers. We can implement our own custom controllers. Controller means simply class. Okay? Controller means simply class. Our own classes, our own business logics we can implement. Now, in this case, whenever we are using this Apex programming language, upon writing some code also, we have to follow some rules. Like every programming language will be having some certain principles. Every programming language is having some certain rules, certain syntaxes, some certain limitations also. Like the similar way, whenever if you want to write some code by using this Apex programming language, here also we have to follow some certain rules. We have to follow some certain principles. Then what kind of rules that we need to follow as part of this Apex programming language here? Now, so now when you go to most of the programming languages, upon writing the code, we have to follow some case sensitivity. Like, upon writing the code, some characters are uppercase, some characters are lowercase. So, we have to take care about the case sensitivity, which one is uppercase, which one is lowercase. But Apex programming is not a case sensitive programming. Upon writing the code, we can use any character case also. It may be uppercase, it may be lowercase, it may be combination also, both we can use. That possibility is there. So that Apex programming is not a case sensitive programming. So upon writing the code, no need to worry about the case sensitivity. We can write the code all in uppercase letters, all in lowercase letters, or combination of both also we can use. That possibility is there. Suppose when you go to some Java programming, Java is purely case sensitive. Some characters are uppercase, some characters are lowercase. We have to follow that. That is very difficult to remember which one is uppercase, which one is lowercase. Because we have very small chip in our mind, so we can't remember this whole information. For that one here, when coming to the Apex programming, they have designed that Apex programming in such a way, so no need to worry about that case sensitivity here. Okay? Now make a note of this one. Apex is not a case sensitive programming. We can write the code by using any character case. It may be uppercase, or it may be lowercase, or it may be combination also. Anything we can use. Now, so now when coming to this Apex programming, upon writing the code by using this Apex programming, we have to follow some principles, we have to follow some rules also. Now, so now whenever I'm going to be writing some statements whenever I'm writing some business logic through Apex programming, in Apex programming, there is a fundamental principle that every statement has to be ends with a semicolon. Generally, whenever I'm writing some information, then every statement we are going to be ending with some dot, nothing but a full stop. But in Apex programming language, each and every statement should be ends with a semicolon. It's a fundamental principle. Not only in Apex programming, in most of the programming languages, we are having the same principle is available. Okay, now. So now in Apex, each statement should be ends with a semicolon. Each statement should be ends with a semicolon. Each statement should be ends with a semicolon. It's a fundamental principle. Now, so now by using this Apex programming, what kind of operations we can do? Can I insert the records into my object through Apex programming? Yes. Can we delete the records? Yes. Can we update the records? Yes. Can we undelete the records? Yes, we can perform. Generally, whenever I'm performing the operations on my object records, so here we are using the tabs. Tab is providing a user interface. Through that user interface, we can manage the records inside the object. But there is a limitation that tab allows me to perform the operations on only one record at a time, not multiple. We can create only one record at a time. We can modify only one record at a time. We can delete only one record at a time, not multiple. But sometimes I want to insert multiple records. I want to update multiple records. I want to delete multiple records in one shot, but that is not possible through the tab. Through the user interface, that is not possible. So that we can achieve with the help of Apex programming. Through Apex programming, we can connect to the database.com and we can perform all the DML operations on your object records. We can insert some records, not only one, multiple we can insert. We can update multiple records. We can delete multiple records. And we can undelete multiple records. We can merge the duplicate records into a single one. That all these operations we can do with the help of this Apex programming. By using Apex programming, we can connect to that Salesforce objects and then we can perform all the DML operations. Now, so in this case, generally, whenever we are using any other programming language, for example, assume that we are having some database. Take some Java application. I'm having a database here. We are having a database. So I'm building a Java-based application. I'm building a Java application. So now, through this Java application, I want to insert some record into my object. I want to insert some records. Through Java application, when you try to insert some records into the object, okay, into the database, directly it won't allow. Java programming won't support directly to interact with the objects. So in between that, the Java programming and the database, we need some mediator components. Okay, we need some mediator components over here. Those components are called as drivers. Okay, those are called as drivers. So now they're using the various drivers here. Okay, so they're using the drivers. It may be ODBC drivers, it may be JDBC drivers also. So now through these drivers, they are going to be passing the data from the application to the driver. The driver is going to be passing that information to the database. It will perform the respective operation and then it will be sending the response back to the driver and then driver is sending the response back to that application. In between that, they are using some drivers over here. Okay, for that one here, as part of Java programming, they are using that JDBC drivers. They are using that JDBC driver. They are using the JDBC drivers. Through the JDBC drivers only, they can able to connect to that database objects and they can perform the operations. Suppose, for example, when you take a .NET-based application here, when you take a .NET-based application, This is a Microsoft .NET application. Through this application, they would like to connect to the database to perform some operations. Here also, they need a mediator components over here. Here also, they need some mediator components. Okay. So now, for that one, through this mediator only, they can able to connect to the database. For that one here, as part of .NET programming, it has given some set of libraries which are available in the form of ADO.NET. ADO.NET. So now through this ADO.NET, they can able to connect from the .NET application to that ADO.NET, and through this ADO.NET, with the help of this ADO.NET, they can able to connect to the database, they can perform some operations here. Okay. So without these libraries, they can't connect. There is a mediator component is involved between the application and the database. But when coming to the Salesforce, as part of our Salesforce, we don't have this kind of mediator components. No need to use any drivers because Apex programming is tightly integrated with the Salesforce objects, so that directly it will be interacting with the Salesforce object. It will be inserting the record, updating the record, deleting the record, performing all the operations. So why? Because if I'm introducing some mediators, then to connect to the mediator, it will take some time, which will be impacting on the application performance. But Salesforce is not maintaining a separate server for each and every customer. They're maintaining a shared infrastructure. At that time, if they're involving this kind of mediators to connect to that particular database through the mediator, it will take more time, so that here the performance will be getting decreased. For that one, they have avoided this kind of mediator components when coming to the Salesforce. Salesforce has defined implemented that programming language in such a way that programming language is going to be connecting to the database directly without any mediators. Without the help of any mediator, without the help of any drivers, it can connect to that Salesforce objects and can perform all the DML operations on your objects here. So that Apex programming is tightly integrated with the Salesforce object, so that directly it can connect to that Salesforce object. It may be standard, it may be custom object, and in that object it can insert the records, update the record, delete the records, and we can able to perform the undelete operations and all the operations we can do. Okay. So now through Apex programming, we can perform all the DML operations on one or more number of object records inside a transaction here. Okay, now make a note of this one. Apex is tightly integrated with database.com objects, hence through Apex programming, we can perform all the DML operations on one or more records inside the Salesforce objects. Inside the Salesforce objects. That is, we can perform insert operation, update, delete, undelete, upsert, merge. Operations on one or more records at a time. Generally, DML statements, in the sense, when you go to any database, we have 4 DML statements: insert, update, delete, select. Only 4. But when coming to the Salesforce, select statement will not come under DML. Select statement has been segregated. It has been separated to SOQL queries. Okay. So now in this case, so that select statement will not come under the DML statement. As part of Apex programming, we are having 6 DML statements are available: insert, update, delete, undelete, upsert, and the merge. DML in the sense what is DML stands for? Data manipulation language. Okay. Now, here upsert in the sense what? Upsert is the combination of both insert plus update. Okay. Now, so by using this Apex programming, not only performing the business logics, we can perform all the DML operations on your object records. Next one. So as part of Apex programming, sometimes I want to fetch the records here from my object. I'm having a table. In my table, I'm having so many records are available. Can I get the records available inside my table through Apex programming? Yes, there is a possibility here. Not only inserting the new records, not only updating the existing records, not only removing, we can able to fetch the records also available inside my object. Sometimes I want to see what records are there inside my object, so I would like to fetch the records. For that one, in order to fetch the records from one or more number of objects, Salesforce has provided one query language that is called as SOQL query. Generally, in the normal databases, we are using SQL statements. Okay, structured query language. But here, structured means what? Table or format. Because structured means table or format. So whatever the data is there in the table or formats inside the database, we can able to make a query. Query means what? A request. To whom? To the database. For what? To get some data from that object here. In order to get some data from the table, we are making a request to the database that is called as a query. That query we have to prepare in a specific format. Because as a human being, I can able to understand some languages here. So in the entire world, we are having so many languages are available. Chinese, Japanese, Telugu, Hindi, English, so many languages are available. But I don't know all, I know only few languages. If somebody wants to talk to me, they have to speak in either English or Telugu or Hindi, then I can understand. If somebody is speaking between Tamil or Malayalam, then I can't understand. Here I don't know those things. Like the similar way, database also can't understand all the languages. So the database will understand some specific format. We have to prepare our request in that format by using that language. That's what they have given structured query language. Whatever the data is there inside the tabular format, we can able to get the data from that objects by making a request to the database by preparing in a specific format by using that language. But here when coming to the Salesforce, Salesforce is holding all the records where inside my database.com. Database.com contains what? Objects. What objects? Salesforce objects. So our records are there inside the Salesforce objects. So that to get the data from those Salesforce objects, we are using a query language called as SOQL query language. Structure Salesforce object query language. Okay. So in this case, now whenever we are fetching the data, we are using the select statement. Select statement will comes under the SOQL query, not comes under the DML statement. Okay. So when you go to other programming languages, other databases, select statement will be comes under the DML statement. But in Salesforce, select statement will comes under SOQL query, not inside the DML. DML means only these are 6 DML statements only, not select statement. Okay. Now, in this case, by using this Apex programming, not only inserting, not only updating, not only deleting the records, we can fetch the records also whenever it is needed. It may be one record, it may be multiple records, it may be all the records available inside that object also, depends upon your required conditions. That possibility is available here. Okay? Now make a note of this one. By using Apex programming, we can fetch one or more records from the Salesforce objects. From the Salesforce objects with the help of a query language called as SOQL queries. SOQL queries. SOQL stands for Salesforce Object Query Language. Salesforce Object Query Language. Salesforce Object Query Language. By using this Salesforce Object Query Language, we can fetch one or more number of records from one or more objects also. Not only fetching the data from one table, we can fetch the data from the multiple tables also with the help of this SOQL queries. Now, So now we are able to retrieve the data and we are able to perform the DML operations. Then what else we can do with the help of this Apex programming? When coming to the Apex programming, as part of Apex programming, Salesforce has given a search engine. Okay, Salesforce has given a search engine. That generally, whenever if you want to search for some information, then we can go to the Google. There is a small text box is available. Type some characters. Once you click on the search button, it is searching for that content in the entire internet in all the websites. So it is listing out all the website names where exactly this search keyword has been described. But now, inside my Salesforce, in my application, we have so many tables are available. In the tables, we have stored so many records. But now, I'm searching for some content. In which table this content is available, I don't know. In which column this content is available, I don't know. Then at that time, how can we search? For that one, Salesforce has given a search engine that is called as SOSL, Salesforce Object Search Language. This kind of search engine is not available in any other programming languages. Okay, this kind of search engine is not available in any other programming language. First time Salesforce people has introduced that search engine that is called as SOSL, which is used to search for a particular content in the multiple objects in Salesforce in one shot. That possibility is there. Okay, so that here, that also we are going to implementing as part of Apex programming only. That is also comes under Apex programming. So now as part of Apex programming, they have given that a search engine called as SOSL, through which we can able to search for a particular content in multiple objects, in multiple tables in Salesforce in one shot. Okay, now, next one here. Make a note. By using Apex programming, we can search for the required content by using a search engine called as SOSL queries. We can search for the records in one or more objects. More objects at a time. In this case, SOSL means Salesforce Object Search Language. Salesforce Object Search Language. Now, then what else we can do by using this Apex programming? So not only implementing our own customized business logics, by using Apex programming, we can able to integrate your Salesforce application with any external system also. Sometimes, once a Salesforce application has been built, then instead of making that application as an independent system, we can integrate our Salesforce application with any external system also. That possibility is there. Okay, that possibility is available. At that time, we can able to integrate your Salesforce application with any external system, with maybe with any third-party system. That third-party system may be either a Java application, .NET application, C++ application, mainframe application, Oracle application, maybe another Salesforce application also, whatever. We can able to integrate your Salesforce application with any external system with the help of this Apex programming. For that one, as part of Apex programming language, Salesforce has given two APIs to you. First one is the REST API, second one is the SOAP API. API means what? Application Programming Interface, which is providing a collection of classes, a group of ready-made classes. With the help of those classes, we can write some piece of code. Through that code, we can able to integrate with the third-party systems also, and we can perform the DML operation inside that. The flexibility is available. So that by using this Apex programming, we can integrate with the external systems also. That possibility is available. If it is a Salesforce to Salesforce, without writing the code also, we can do the integration. If it is a Salesforce to some other third party, then we need to write some business logics here. We are going to implementing with the help of the Apex programming. As part of Apex programming, we are having the two APIs, REST API and the SOAP API. By using these APIs, by using these ready-made classes, we can write some piece of code to have the integration with the third-party systems. Okay? Now make a note over here. By using Apex programming, we can integrate the Salesforce application with any external system with the help of REST API and the SOAP API. Here REST stands for representational state transfer. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. API stands for Application Programming Interface. Application Programming Interface. So these are all our parts of Apex programming only. As part of Apex programming, we have to discuss how to write some complex validations, complex business logics, and then how to perform DML operations, and then how to fetch the data, how to search for the data, how to integrate. Everything we have to implement through that Apex programming only. These are all our parts of Apex programming. So now you can raise a question, sir, by using page layout, we can able to process only one record at a time. We can update only one record. We can delete only one record. Then by using Apex programming, how many records we can able to process at a time? Now in Apex programming, it has given the capability that through Apex programming, we can able to process maximum of 50 million records in one shot. Okay. That means 5 crore records we can able to process by using Apex programming with the help of a feature called as batch concept. By using that batch programming as part of Apex, we'll see how to process maximum of 50 million records in one shot. Okay, that much of capability is available as part of this Apex programming here. Okay, now, so in this case, how an Apex program will get executed internally here? Generally, whenever we are going to be writing some Apex programming or any programming language code, what are the various steps involved upon writing your Apex program, any programming language code? For example, I want to write a small program. For that one, I would like to use some Java programming. Then what we can do initially here? First of all, we have to write some code. Write the code. So we have to take a small editor first. That editor may be a notepad editor, that may be Edit Plus, or it may be any editor, Eclipse IDE, whatever. Whatever the editors are available which are supporting by the Java programming, we have to use any one of the editor, or else you can use the notepad also. Inside this notepad, we have to write that code. That code is called as the source code. Source code means what? Whatever the logic that you are writing inside your notepad, or whatever the logic that you are writing inside your application, that logic is called as source code. So now which is going to be writing by the developer. As a Java developer, we have to write some code here. Now we are using some Java programming here. By using some Java programming, we are going to be writing the code. Once the code has been getting written, then how can we save this code? Where we can save? Anybody is aware of Java programming? Anyone? No one is aware of? I won't ask any question, at least raise the hand. So in this case, once the Java code has been getting implemented, then we have to save that code. Okay, we have to save that code, okay, into your local system somewhere. It may be C drive, D drive, desktop, wherever you want. We have to save that code with the extension that is called as .java. Okay, now the people are raising that answers. Now, for example, I'm giving that file name as some sample. So now sample.java. We have to save that file with the extension okay, .java. Like as every notepad will be having that extension .txt. Every Word document is having the extension .doc or .docx. Like the similar way, every Java programming code has to be saved inside your local system with the extension .java. Now, once the code has been getting written, then how can we execute this? Directly, your code cannot be executable here. Okay, your code cannot be executable. First of all, we have to verify whether that code has been prepared based on the principles, based on the standards, based on the guidelines, based on the rules of the Java programming language or not. That means, upon preparing that code, upon writing that code, have you followed all the rules of Java programming language or not? We need to cross-check that. Because as a human being, I can do some mistakes also. Okay, as a human being, we can do some mistakes also because it's our right. Okay, so that we can do some mistakes. So in this case, if I'm writing some malfunctioning code, it should not be able to understandable by the operating system. So in this case here, when coming to the Java programming language, it is providing a component called as compiler. There is a component called as compiler. So now in this case here, the compiler, what it will do, compiler is nothing but a software which is going to be compiling the code. What it will do basically, the compiler is going to be identifying the syntactical mistakes inside your code. Whatever the code that you have written, in that code, have you followed all the rules of the Java programming language or not? Is there any syntactical mistakes are available in that code or not? It will verify. If the code is compiled successfully, if there is no syntactical mistakes are available, if the code has been compiled successfully, then it is going to be converting that .java file into a .class file. It is generating a .class file. Sample.class file. Yes, that class file will be getting generated here. But basically, this .class file will be having the code in the form of bytecode format. Okay, this is available in the form of bytecode. This is one of the intermediate format which is maintaining by the Sun Microsystems to make that Java as a platform independent. In order to make that Java application has to be run on any platform, on any operating system, they have introduced this, the mediator, the format over here that is called as bytecode, which cannot be understandable by the operating system. So that to convert this bytecode into the operating system understandable format, they have introduced a runtime engine here. Okay, they have introduced a runtime engine that is called as JVM. That is called as JVM, Java Virtual Machine. So now, this Java Virtual Machine is going to be converting that bytecode format into the operating system understandable format. It will be converting that code into that bytecode format into that operating system understandable format here. So that your code will be running on that operating system, we can see the results here. So in this case here, what happened? Once the code has been getting written, then we are saving that code inside my local system over here, and then I'm going to be compiling the code by using that compiler. For Java, what is the compiler that we have? For Java, we are having a compiler called as Java C. C means compiler, Java compiler here. So now here, we are using that compiler. By using that compiler, we are going to be compiling the code to verify the syntactical mistakes. If there is no syntactical mistakes available inside my code, then it is going to be converting the source code into that class file, which will be having the bytecode format, which cannot be understandable by the operating system. To convert this bytecode format into the operating system understandable format, they are using a virtual machine. This is also called as a runtime engine. Because it is called as a runtime engine that is called as Java virtual machine, which will be taking this bytecode format as input. It will convert this bytecode format into the operating system understandable format, so that it will make that code to be ready to execute on your operating system, and to execute that code, we can see the result here. Okay. So this is the actual process will be happening when coming to the Java programming. Here we have two components are available basically here. Okay, we have two components are available. One is a compiler, which is going to be compiling the code. Second one is a runtime engine, which is going to be executing your code. But now, when coming to your Apex programming, how the flow will be executing? Whenever we are going to be writing the code, where we can write, where the code will save, where it will compile, where it will execute, where we can see the results. Now let's see the Apex programming execution life cycle. Okay, how your Apex program will get executes internally, we'll see practically now. But in this case, when coming to that Java programming, we are using some notepad or we are using some editors to write the code. But in Salesforce, we don't have such kind of editors here. Everything we are writing inside the browser itself. Through the browser only, we are going to be getting that editor. In that browser, we can write the code, we can save the code, we can compile, we can execute, we can see everything will be in the browser itself. So no need to install anything into a local system. No need to maintain any prerequisite editors. No need to maintain any prerequisite software into a local system. Everything we can able to operatable through the browser itself. Just we need a browser and the internet access. Not only to access the Salesforce CRM application, to develop your business logic also. Just these two are sufficient for me. I no need to install anything into my local system. So that upon building your own business logic also, upon designing your own user interfaces, everything we are going to be implementing with the help of the browser itself. So in this case, how your Apex program will get executes internally here. Okay. Now, here also, when coming to the Apex programming will be using the two components again internally. One is a compiler, second one is a runtime engine. What is that compiler? What is that runtime engine? Where my code will save? Now let's see practically here. Okay. So now how your Apex programming code will be getting executing internally? Now let's see practically. Let's see the Apex programming execution life cycle. So let's see the Apex programming execution life cycle. So this is the Apex programming execution life cycle here. So what will happen in this execution life cycle? What is the flow of execution? How your code will get compiled? Where exactly the compiled code will be getting resides? Now let me explain practically here. Okay, now. So now, this is the entire execution life cycle of your Apex programming. Let's see the execution life cycle step-by-step approach. For example, assume that I have joined into a organization as a Salesforce developer. 1 month back, I have joined as a developer, and then recently they have allocated a project to me also. I have been assigned to a project. So from there onwards, every day, my technical lead is assigning some task to me. So, but as of now, they have assigned purely the admin task. Today, they have assigned a small requirement to implement some complex business logic. They asked me to implement a business logic by using the Apex programming language. They asked me to write a small Apex class, or they asked me to write a small trigger or batch class, whatever. They have given a small requirement to me, okay, to be get implemented through the Apex program. So now, as a developer, my role is in this place. Okay, as a developer, my role is in this place. So now, in this case, as a developer, we have to write the code. Okay, we have to write the code. Then where we can write that code? We are writing that code by using that browser itself. We are not using any editors. We are not using any notepad. We are not using any third-party tools. So now by using that browser itself, we can able to write that code. Not only accessing the application, not only utilizing the features, we can able to write the code by using that browser itself. So that I'm using that browser, and then in that browser, we are having the option to write that code. So now here I'm writing some Apex programming code here. Okay, I'm writing some Apex programming code. I written some piece of code which is available inside the browser itself. Inside the browser itself, I'm writing some piece of code here. So now whatever the Apex programming code that you have written, this code will be saving somewhere, right? Not in my local system. Of course, it is not storing in my local system, but somewhere it will be storing inside the cloud. Okay, in the cloud, it will be storing somewhere here. Upon saving this code inside a file, that file will be having some extension, right? Yes. So for that one, each and every Apex class code will be storing inside a file with the extension .apexc. C means class, Apex means Apex. So now this is Apex class. Okay. If it is a Visual Force page, it will be having the extension .vfp, Visual Force page. If it is a trigger, it will be having APXT, Apex trigger. Like that here, each and every file will be having a specific extension. So in this case, I have written some Apex programming code. So now that Apex class code will be storing inside a file with the extension .apexc. So now once after writing some code, then I would like to execute that code here, so that there is a button called as save button. As soon as once you click on that save button, what will happen in this case here? Now let me explain. As soon as once you click on this save button, okay, upon click on this save button, now whatever the code that you have written inside my editor, inside my browser, that code will not be saving into my local system. That code will be sending to that force.com platform as a request. That code will be sending to that force.com platform as a request. This is the first step. After writing that code, when you click on save button, the code will not be saving into a local system. The code will be sending to the force.com platform as a request. But this code is not a compiled one. We haven't compiled that code. Nothing is there in my local system. Nothing will be available inside my local device. So that here, the code has to be get compiled and executed by the force.com platform itself. So that this uncompiled code has been sending to the force.com platform as a request. Now, as soon as whenever the code has been sending to the force.com platform, here the actual necessary verification process will get started. Directly, your request will not be entering into the force.com platform. Every request has to be get authorized by the force.com platform. Okay, every request has to be get authorized by the force.com platform. So now, as soon as whenever once you click on the save button, along with your code, whatever the code that you have implemented by using Apex programming, along with that code, it will be sending so much information to that force.com platform. Inside my request, it will be sending so much information. What kind of information it will send? Now let me explain here. As soon as once you click on that save button, it is going to be sending the farm data. That means whatever the code that you have written, that means the Apex code. Whatever the Apex code that you have written, that Apex code will be sending to that force.com platform as a request. And along with that, it will be sending your header information. Each and every message will be having that header information. It will send the header information also. Along with that, it will send the session ID. Okay, it will send the session ID. That means to indicate that whether you are already authenticated or not, whether already you have showed your credentials or not. For that one, it is using that session ID here. Already you are aware of the session management concept during the security. Okay, now it will verify whether the session ID is in active status or not. And then after that, it is going to be verifying your system's IP address. It will send your system IP address also. Along with that, it will send your browser information. Browser information. It will send your operating system information also. These are the various details you'll be sending upon click on save button. But generally, when they click on the save button, user will start off my record has been saved successfully. How it is saving? Upon click on save button, along with the record details, it will send so much information. Like it will send your Apex code and the header information, session ID, your system's IP address, browser information, operating system information. Along with that, it will send your organization ID also. It will send your organization ID. That means from which organization you are sending this request here. it will send your organization ID also. Along with that, it will send your user ID also. Okay, it will send your user ID. These are the various details will be getting forwarded from your local system to that Force.com platform as a request upon click on save button. But the user doesn't know all these things. When the user click on save button, he will thought of only my data is forwarding to the server. But along with the data, it will be sending so much information internally by default. Okay. Now, so in this case, as soon as once you click on that save button, it will send this whole information to that the Salesforce server. That means to the Force.com platform. So now, as soon as the request has been reaching to the Force.com platform, first of all, the Force.com platform is going to verifying whatever the session ID is available, the session ID is in active status or not. That means this user is already authenticated or not over here. If the user is already authenticated, then it is collecting that user's organization ID. It will collect the organization ID. Based on that organization ID, it will go to that organization table. It will verify with this ID, do we have an organization is exist or not. If the organization is in exist, then it will verify whether this organization is in active or deactivation status here. It will verify. So in this case, if the organization is in active status, then only it will collect that user ID. Based on the user ID, it will verify whether this user is in active status or not, whether this user is an active user or not. If the user is active, then it will go to that user's profile. Okay. Based on this user ID, it will go to that user's profile here. In this profile, it will verify the permission. Now tell me, to create the Apex classes, what permission that we need? To create the Apex class, what permission that we need inside my profile? In my profile, I need a small permission, a small checkbox. To create Apex classes, I want to make myself as an author of an Apex class. I'm giving the clue also. I want to make myself as an author of an Apex class. No? Somebody is telling that. What is that permission inside the profile to create Apex classes? Author? Say confidently. What is that permission? Other Apex, right. So now in order to create that Apex classes, it requires the permission of other Apex permission. It will go to the profile, inside that permission, inside that profile level permission, it will verify a permission called as other Apex. Okay. As part of security, we have discussed that here. In order to create the Apex classes inside the organization, we should have the permission other Apex inside your profile level. So that it will go to that, the user ID. Based on the user ID, it will go to the respective user's profile. In that profile, it will check the permission, whether he is having the permission to create the Apex classes or not. He is having the rights to execute the Apex classes or not, it will check the permission that is called as other Apex permission. Once the other Apex permission is available, if the session ID is in active status, if the organization ID is in active status, user is inactive, user is having the profile level permission, then only your request will be entering into that the Force.com platform here. Then only request will be entering into that Force.com platform. Okay. So now as soon as once you click on the save button, this much of verification will be done by the Force.com platform because it's a secured platform. So many hackers may be trying to be hacking that information so that to prevent the data from the unauthorized people, from the hacker, this much of security boundary, this much of security processes has been introduced by Salesforce. So that as soon as once you click on that save button, each and every code, each and every request has to be get authorized by the Force.com platform. So once it has been getting authorized, then it will be entering your request into the inside that Force.com platform. In that Force.com platform, we have two components are available. Okay, we have two components are available. Inside that Force.com platform, we have two components are available here. The first one is an application server. Second one is the metadata repository. two components are available: application server and the metadata repository. Application server is for what? Application server is used to compile your code to execute your code. Whatever the application that you are going to build, that application can be get compiled and executed with the help of application server. Like for example, whenever we are building any Java-based application, .NET-based application, which is a web application, then to execute that application, we need some application server or web server. It may be WebLogic, it may be Tomcat, it may be Apache, or it may be the Internet Information Server. Like that, we need some application servers which are used to execute your web application or application. Okay, like as enterprise applications also. So like the similar way, when coming to the Salesforce, it is purely a web application, cloud-based application. So in this case, to execute your application, it requires an application server. So that inside the Force.com platform, we are having an application server. And once the code has been getting compiled successfully, to store that code inside that Force.com platform, we need a location. We need a place, we need a repository that is called as a metadata repository. Metadata repository is a location where exactly the compiled code will be getting reside. Your compiled Apex classes, your triggers, your batch classes, your schedule classes, your web services, your APIs, okay, your controller classes, everything will be getting resides inside that metadata repository. Generally, when you go to some other programming languages, once the code has been written, we are going to be saving that code in our local system itself. But my code will not be available inside my local system. My code will be available inside a location called as metadata repository. Metadata repository is a location which will be available inside the Force.com platform, where exactly all your Apex classes, your business logics, and your triggers, your batch classes, schedule classes, web services, APIs, Visual Force pages, whole information will be available inside the metadata repository itself. Okay. So nothing will be there in my local system. Everything will be there inside that Force.com platform itself. Just we are going to be connecting to the Force.com platform with the help of a browser and the internet access. That's it. So that even though we are developing our own custom applications, we no need of using any prerequisite softwares. Okay. Everything can be operatable through the browser itself. So that as soon as once you click on that save button, the uncompiled code will be sending to that Force.com platform. It will do the necessary verification. If the verification has been done, if all the data is available, all the permissions are available, then your request will be entering into the Force.com platform. The request will be sending to the application server. In this application server, we are having again two components are available. Okay. As part of application server, we are having the two components are available. The first one is the Apex compiler. Because to compile that code, we need a compiler here. So we are having that compiler called as Apex compiler. To run your Apex programming code, we need a runtime engine that is called as Apex runtime engine. Okay, we have two components inside this here: Apex compiler and the Apex runtime engine. So now Apex compiler is going to be compiling the code. Apex runtime engine is going to be executing your code. These are the two components internally maintaining by Salesforce as part of application server. We have Apex compiler, we have that Apex runtime engine. Okay, now. So now here in this case, as soon as whenever your request has been sent to the application server is going to be sending your request to that the Apex compiler. Now, the Apex compiler main responsibility is what? Apex compiler is going to be receiving the code which has been implemented by the developer. It will verify, do we have any syntactical mistakes available inside that code or not? Okay. In order to verify, do we have any syntactical mistakes exist inside our code or not, we are using this Apex compiler. Okay. So Apex compiler is used to verify the syntactical mistakes. Now in this case, as soon as when the user is initiating the request to execute that code, the code will not be executing directly. First of all, the code will be sending to the Apex compiler. Now the compiler is going to verify, do we have any syntactical mistakes available or not. Upon compiling that code, if there is any syntactical mistakes has been available, okay, if there is any syntactical mistakes are available inside your code, okay, if there is any syntactical mistakes are available inside that code, then what it will do? As soon as if it is identifying any syntactical mistakes, immediately it will stop executing the code. The code will be sending back to the developer over here. Okay, immediately it will be sending the notification back to the developer. That means your uncompiled code, that means the code is not yet compiled. There is some syntactical mistakes are available, so that that code will not be residing inside the metadata repository. Only the quality code, only the error-free code, only the compiled code will be storing inside the metadata repository here. Okay. So during that compilation, if there is any mistakes has been identified by the compiler, then those compilation errors will be sending to the developer immediately by stopping the compilation process here. So it is going to be sending the response back to the developer with the help of that compilation errors. These are the various mistakes we have identified inside your code. These are the mistakes that you did. So please rectify the code. Please modify the code. Please resubmit the code for the recompilation process again. So now in this case, the developer has to modify that code and he has to resubmit the code for the recompilation process again here. Now, again that Apex compiler is going to be compiling the code. Once the code has been getting compiled successfully, if there is no syntactical mistakes available, then your compiled code will be storing inside the metadata repository. Okay, only the error-free code. Okay, only that bug-free code, only that compiled code will be storing inside the metadata repository. Metadata repository is the location where exactly your Apex classes, your business logic code will be getting resides inside. It's not in your local system. Okay. Previously, when we observed the previous case, when coming to the Java .NET, that will be storing in our local system itself, but here the code will be storing inside the force.com platform that is available inside the cloud, not in my local system. So in this case, your compiled code will be storing inside that metadata repository. Along with that, whatever the code has been getting compiled successfully, that copy of that compiled code, one copy of your compiled code will be storing inside a location, inside an object also. It is maintaining one additional object also by the Salesforce. It will maintain an object also. That object is called as Apex class object. Apex class is a standard object in Salesforce. Okay, Apex class is a standard object in Salesforce. Once the code has been getting compiled successfully, the code will be storing inside the metadata repository, and then along with that, one copy of that code will be storing inside the metadata, inside that Apex class object also. A copy of the code will be storing inside that Apex class object also. Apex class is a standard object in Salesforce. Okay, Apex class is a standard object in Salesforce. So now inside that Apex class object, all the Apex classes information will be getting resides. Like all the lead records are storing in the lead object. Case records are storing in the case object. Account records are storing in the account object. Like the similar way, all the Apex classes will be storing inside that Apex class object here. Apex class is a standard object where exactly all the Apex classes information, what Apex classes, compiled Apex classes information will be getting resides. Now, for example, here, come to a general scenario. Assume that I have an account object. In that account object, I have created an account record. Whenever I'm creating an account record inside the object, what the Salesforce will do basically? Once a record has been inserted, what Salesforce will do? Upon creating a record, new record, what Salesforce will generate for that record? ID will be generating. Like the similar way here, as soon as whenever it is storing the Apex class inside this Apex class object, it is also generating one ID here. That ID will be sending by the Apex compiler, sorry, the Apex class object here. The Apex class object is going to be sending that ID over here. That ID will be sending back to the Apex compiler. Now the Apex compiler will receive that ID here. Okay. As soon as once the code has been getting compiled successfully, okay, as soon as once the code has been compiled successfully, the compiled Apex programming code will be storing inside the metadata repository. Along with that, one copy of the code will be storing inside that Apex class object. Once the class code has been stored inside the Apex class object, then this object is generating one ID for that class code, because here that entire class code will be treating like as a record inside that table here. So it is generating an ID for that Apex class. Now that ID will be forwarding to that Apex compiler. Now, the compiler is going to be receiving the ID generated by the Apex class object. Now, based on the ID, it will make an indication to the Apex runtime engine. Immediately, it will send an indication to the Apex runtime engine. Just now, I have compiled one Apex class code. So, this is the idea of the Apex class code. The code is already there in the metadata repository. So, please go to that metadata repository, get that class code, execute it, send the response back to the developer here. It will be giving the indication to the Apex runtime engine. No, Apex compiler's responsibility is what? It is purely compiling the code. To execute that code, we need a separate component that is called as Apex runtime engine here. Now, once the code has been successfully compiled, once ID has been getting received, that ID it will be forwarding to the Apex runtime engine that just now I have compiled the code. The code has been stored inside the metadata repository. So please execute that code here by collecting it from the metadata repository. Now, in this case, it is passing that ID also. Based on that indication received from the Apex compiler, Apex runtime engine is going to be making a request to the metadata repository by passing the ID. So now please give me the code of this Apex class which is having the ID here. Now it will be making a request to that metadata repository. Metadata repository will receive the ID of this Apex class. Based on this ID, it will collect the data from that metadata repository. That code will be sending back to that Apex runtime engine. Now the Apex runtime engine is going to be collecting that code. The code will be storing inside that buffer memory. From there, it will start executing that code over here. Whatever the code it has collected from the metadata repository, it will start executing that code here. Upon executing that code, sometimes it maybe needs to interact with the database also. Because in that business logic, I have written some code to insert some record into the object. So that it has to insert into that object over here. So it has to connect to that database. For that one here, upon executing that code, sometimes it is interacting with the database.com objects also here. It is interacting with the database.com object also. So sometimes it can able to insert the record, it will be getting the response back also. So that both the direction will be available to you. So upon executing that code, it is going to be interacting with the database.com also. Once operations have been getting performed, then it is going to be generating the result over here. Once the result has been getting generated, then I need to send the result back to the developer, where the user can see that result inside the browser here. Because user is not using any command from any editor. The user has to see the result inside the browser itself. If you want to show some information in terms of the browser, then automatically that content should be in the form of HTML format. So that whatever the result has been getting generated, that result will be converting into the HTML format. That HTML format of response will be sending back to the developer by writing that information inside a file that is called as a debug log file. Okay? Whatever the result is available, the result information is going to be writing inside a file. That file is called as a debug log file, which will be holding your entire application execution flow. So now as soon as once you click on the save button, from there onwards, whatever the flow is happening internally inside that application server, the whole flow will be tracking by that Salesforce. That flow will be writing inside this debug log file here. This debug log file will be having your application execution history. It will be having your application execution flow. How much memory it has occupied to execute your application. How many lines of code that you have written. Which user has invoked this classes over here. On what date and what time you have executed this class. And then how many SQL queries you have used. How many records you have collected. How many DML operations you have performed. How many SOSL queries you have executed. How many email notifications you have sent. How many web services you have invoked. How much heap size you have collected. The whole information will be tracking by the Salesforce inside a file that is called as debug log file. In this debug log file, it is writing that whole information also. Your results also will be printing inside the debug log file. If there is any errors are available upon execution, those errors also storing inside the debug log file here. So that debug log file is a place where exactly we can see our results. Generally, in the other programming languages, the people can see the results inside the command prompt. But now here we are seeing the result inside that debug log file here. In that debug log file, we can see your result, your errors also. And then what kind of DML statements you have performed, how many DML statements you have utilized, how much of heap memory we have utilized, how many email notifications you have sent, how many web services you have invoked. Everything will be tracking by Salesforce. That whole information will be writing inside a file that is called as a debug log file. This debug log file will be having the actual result. The result will be sending back to the developer in the form of this file here. So that we can see the result of your application execution by using that debug log file. Debug log file contains that execution flow along with the result information also. Okay. This is the flow of execution when coming to your Apex programming language. Okay. When coming to your Apex programming, we are having this execution flow. So first of all, after writing that code, as soon as once you click on the save button, the uncompiled code will be sending to the first.com platform. It will do the necessary verifications. Once the verification has been done, if the user is having the proper permissions, then the request will be entering into the first.com platform. It will send the request to the application server. Now the application server will be sending that request to that Apex compiler. Compiler is going to be compiling the code. During the compilation process, if there is any syntactical mistakes are available, immediately it will be sending the response back to the developer by indicating the compilation errors. If there is no syntactical mistakes, then once the code has been compiled successfully, the compiled code will be storing inside the metadata repository. Along with that, one copy will be storing inside the Apex class object here. Okay. So now once the class code has been stored inside the Apex class object, it will be generating the ID. That ID will be receiving by that Salesforce. And then it is going to be passing the indication to the Apex runtime engine. Just now we have compiled the code and this is the ID of that class code. Please get that class code from the metadata repository and then start executing that, send the response back to the developer. Now the Apex runtime engine will be receiving that request. Based on indication, will be collecting the respective code from the metadata repository. It will start executing that code. It will be generating the result. Result is going to be converting into the HTML format. That HTML response is going to be writing inside a debug log file. The debug log file will be sending to the developer so the developer can see the result inside the debug log file. Okay. This is the execution flow will be happening when coming to your Apex programming language. Okay. Even though you are going to be writing that, okay, even though you are writing a single line of code also, this process is common. Okay, this process will be common. It may be single line code, it may be thousands of lines of code also, the same process will be happening internally by default. Okay, clear? No. Log files we can see in two places here. In order to see the log files, we are having two places. One is, we can go to the monitor option. When we go to that monitor, here we are having the last option called as logs. Here we have an option called as debug logs. This is one location. Second way is, we can go to the developer console. In this developer console, you will be having the tab bar is available here. In the middle of this, you will be having a tab bar. In this tab bar, you are having a tab called as logs tab. Here also we can able to see the debug log files. These are the two places where we can see the debug log files information. Okay, clear? Now, so this is the way your Apex programming is going to be executing internally by default here. Okay, now, so whenever we are going to be writing that Apex programming code, Apex programming is providing so many fundamental building blocks. It is providing so many fundamental building blocks here which can be used upon writing that code. Like it is providing so many fundamental building blocks like as the data types, variables, conditional statements, iterative statements, arrays, object-oriented programming principles. It has given so many fundamental building blocks through which we can able to write some piece of code initially, and then when moving forward, we can implement our own functionalities by our own. Then what fundamental building blocks has been given by the Apex programming language, okay, we'll see in tomorrow's session here. In tomorrow's session, we'll see the fundamental building blocks of your Apex programming, like as the data types we'll see practically here, what exactly the data type, what it contains, and then what are the various data types are available, we'll see practically one by one.